is a Fox News alert. We told you that the National Security Agency has been monitoring this show and the content of Tucker's emails. According to a media outlet called The Record, the NSA has just completed its internal review of the matter. The NSA now admits that it unmasked Tucker's identity after an intelligence intercept. By law, the identities of American citizens are concealed when they're caught up during foreign intelligence gathering. They can only be unmasked in extraordinary circumstances. Fox News has just released this statement, quote, "For the NSA to unmask Tucker Carlson or any journalist attempting to secure a newsworthy interview is entirely unacceptable and raises serious questions about their activities, as well as their original denial, which was wildly misleading." We're always glad to see Harmeet Dillon when it comes to issues like this. Harmeet, what do you make of the NSA's revision of its story?
Well, Mark, thanks for having me. I'm not buying it. I think that what they're saying now is inconsistent with what they've said before, and it's also inconsistent with the facts as Tucker has revealed them. For example, Tucker said on his show on several nights that a source within the government came to him and read out several of Tucker's texts and messages. And so what the government is allegedly saying today is that the unmasking occurred regarding third parties talking with one another about Tucker Carlson. Okay, so that's inconsistent with them intercepting Tucker Carlson's. Number two, there's only a handful of people in the United States government who have the ability and the right to unmask people. And that right was widely abused during the end of the Obama administration, 2016. And I'm afraid it's being abused right now. And so this raises more questions than it answers. And I think that we really need to be looking at reining in the abuses in the national security community of these types of issues. And no American journalist should be surveilled this way. And finally, these types of communications must never be leaked to the media. Axios had these communications. So they haven't answered that. How did that happen?
And people totally unconnected with the so-called investigation, unquote, also had them as well. And as you point out, it looks like we're back to the frenzy of January 2017 on this unmasking nonsense. Harmeet, I wanted to ask you about a related story. Nick Clegg was once Her Britannic Majesty's Deputy Prime Minister. Now he's a senior executive at Facebook. He recently appeared on a podcast with an ex-Biden guy called Andy Slavitt. And at one point, Slavitt prodded Clegg to start censoring this show. Here's how Nick Clegg responded.
And look, on Tucker Carlson, I think he and his team don't like it, but we've demoted and labeled a video that he and his team have posted on the Tucker Carlson Tonight Facebook page. I remember there was a report about a teenager's adverse reaction to the vaccine, and we demoted that and labeled it. We didn't remove it, and that gets us into a lot of hot water, because he's a very articulate advocate for his viewpoint, and he's got a lot of ardent supporters, and they kind of say, Facebook shouldn't do that. How dare you? How dare
cancel
you
culture?
Take this action.
Cancel culture.
So you get it. I mean, we look, and I'm not complaining about this at all. I think it's part of the consequences and possibly the kind of privilege of the success that Facebook's had. But we get it in the neck on both sides.
Harmeet, what's your reaction to this so-called demoting?
Well, that was very cringe to listen to, how awkwardly Clegg answered those questions in the tradition of Neville Chamberlain, scurrying for favor.
That's a bit unfair to Neville, actually. I would say
full retreat, but yes, definitely seeking accommodation with the enemy, if you will, which is typically the government is typically, something that private companies want to stay away from. But the successive administrations have put a lot of pressure on social media companies, so naturally they're very sensitive to pressure from the government. And where you have the administration Biden calling Mark Zuckerberg a stone cold killer, casually for not suppressing enough, you naturally have the circumstance where these companies are going to feel a lot of pressure to do it, and they do. And we've had it not just only in this vaccine setting, but also in the election law setting. And I've got a lawsuit pending against the state of California for censoring speech regarding the election and taking down people from Twitter, and other secretaries of state are doing this as well. So this is widespread. We don't even know the extent of it. It is dangerous, and it is barred by the First Amendment. And so I expect to see a lot more litigation on this issue.
Let me ask you, just sort of stepping back, since you brought up Neville Chamberlain. I mean, the United Kingdom is a much diminished place this day, but still, in normal circumstances, you would not think it normal for a guy to go from deputy prime minister to some junior executive at Facebook as any kind of promotion. Does that fact alone, that Zuckerberg is hiring deputy prime ministers, tell us that Facebook is now actually bigger than most countries, bigger than most governments?
Oh, it's been like that for a while, and what's concerning is not that it's bigger than most countries, but which countries are the big markets that these social media companies are seeking to invade, if you will. They are very interested in dominating the Chinese market and the Indian market, and specifically markets that don't have the respect for free speech that even the Neville Chamberlain UK had. And so I think that this is a very dangerous development, and they seem to acquiesce that, of course, the government can tell us what to censor, and of course we're going to do that and please the government as much as possible. And in so doing and falling over themselves, I think they're really putting themselves at risk of losing some of those protections from liability that these companies have won with so much lobbying and are very afraid of losing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I wish they would lose some of those protections, because there's no good coming for any of us in increasing the power of this guy, Zuckerberg. Harmeet, it's always great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.